Good morning, everybody. I hope this finds everybody well. You're staying safe out there. Bottom line of all these things, I guess, is the only person really paying attention to your safety is you. Sorry. Anyway, this segment, as promised, I'm going to start reading. No, I was going to start reading some of the accessibility documents that the judges use, but I figured a good place to start would be actually the Ontario government. I mean, we are in the province of Ontario, and somebody's responsible for this, right, Ms. Wynne? Or whoever the Attorney General is, or do we have a public safety minister in Ontario? Hey, there's a new job description. You can get another person in there for privilege and give them their privileged pension while you steal hours. And well, anyway, again, I said I wouldn't do this. So anyway, so this is the much touted. I'm going to read the actual accessible customer service policy of the Ontario government. Now, if you'd like to find this, it's at www.ontario.ca/page/accessible customer service policy. Or you can go to the website and go through their maze of whatever. Maybe at some point I'll figure out how we put this on the internet and get you guys to link to it right from this video. Again, hey, I'm looking for media specialists. If we can get this on Twitter. I don't know if you're aware, but I challenged Mr. Trudeau because we're trying to raise awareness that there's a problem in Canada, and Mr. Trudeau obviously isn't aware. And I can send him messages and challenges, and he just isn't aware. He doesn't want to be aware. Anyway, I don't know if you noticed my last one, but I actually challenged him. I was using the thought of Mr. Patrick Brazo. You know how they did all that hype on the hill. Hey, there's a good name for our match, hype on the hill. Anyway, yeah, so I was taking a page from that. I was thinking, how do I get the? Because I've been sending this to news agencies too, and they're so tightly controlled and tight-lipped on this issue because it makes everybody look bad. That I decided, how do I get this in the news? So taking a page from Mr. Trudeau, I figured, well, let's take this Mr. Brazo thing. I mean, they used it to raise money and awareness on the Hill. Awareness of what? I'm not sure, but how much? Anyway, that's I don't want to give my opinion on that. I've given enough of my opinions for now. Anyway, so I figured, well, I take a page from his book. I'll sit there and challenge him to a boxing match for charity. I mean, 3 rounds, put the gloves on and everything. And the idea was, I mean, he's beating me up in the courtroom. They're beating me up in public. They're beating me up on every front. Might as well get his chance to take a shot at me in the ring. Anyway, no, it's just to raise awareness and raise money. But it's funny that you got to take a parody of his actions in order for him to hopefully come in and get the punch line. Mr. Trudeau, I hope your vacation was good because you had a lot of thinking to do. Anyway, yeah, this is probably your first and biggest inherited, because I must say this is inherited, even though you're responsible for it just as much as a leader of the opposition. But it's the first and major and probably the most corrupt, look into corruption of what's going on in this legal system. Because you know what? Everything that I'm talking about is what enabled them to do the money under the table in Tim Hortons. The suitcase of money delivered to Mr. Mulrooney's house even before the engine was cold from dropping him off from being prime minister. And all these patronage where, Mr. Johnson gets to frame the questions to make sure, again, with the privilege, we're not allowed to find out any answers. And even if we do the privilege, that they don't get anything done to them because it's that privilege of arm's length privilege. And is anybody else noticing how this is getting in the way of things? Anyway, back to the topic. Here we are. So, accessible customer service policy available to anybody on the website. Apparently, it's really easy to read, but hard to understand, especially when it comes to people who are delivering these services. Again, they seem to think, and it's really funny because even a woman came up to me at the end of one of the hearings, and when I was trying to explain to the judge what I needed for accessibility in order to accommodate me to assist the court, and I'm sitting there pleading with the judge, and she happened to be in the back. We had to wait for a document to be signed. She was in the same room, and she said, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to intrude, and I don't mean to stick my nose in, but I have an observation. And we said, well, that's fine. We'd like to hear what people have to say. And she said, they think it's about getting in a building. I don't think they know what what your request for accessibility is or means. So even just a stranger, a woman I've never met before, who happens to be sitting in the back of this mental health court, again, courtroom 104, 85 Frederick Street, which is on the corner of Frederick and Duke Streets in beautiful downtown Kitchener. Uh, and I love my city. That's why I'm doing this. I love my country. I love my province. I care about people and I care about the truth. I hope other people do. And I have hope that they do. So this is why I'm doing this. And again, it's to start a conversation and get other people to hopefully come forward with their stories. Because you know what? The more that we come on YouTube, and you better do this before TPP, because if you know, I don't know if you noticed, but if you actually search any of my videos, they're on YouTube.com, which is all over the world. It's supposed to be available to every search engine everywhere. But if you put this on a Canadian search engine like Bing or Yahoo or DuckDuckGo or whatever those other ones, anyone that is centered from Canada, I invite you, go ahead and do it. Put any of my videos in. Do the same tagline like CJ Bacon, disabled Canadian, and then you could add that challenges PM PM Trudeau to boxing match. Okay, put that in as your tagline and search it in Canadian search engines, see what comes up, both for the video tag and the news tag and all tag. And then switch to Google. And this is why, you know what, Google deserves a lot of respect, regardless. And this is through personal experience because you're about to find out. If you put it on Google, and it's funny because I think if you put it on youtube.ca, it's the same result, which is nothing comes up, if you're lucky. Like, there might be one that comes up on youtube.ca. I think it did once, but it's not high in the priority list. And this is the actual tag of the video. Anyway, do yourself a favor. Check it through Canadian search engines, and then go ahead and do it under Google or YouTube.com. And when you do it under Google or YouTube.com, the result is extremely different. And yet, you know what? The way the web works is that if you put something up on the web, it's the buzzwords and words you connect to it that will connect people to your web, unless, of course, somebody's blocking it. And I've also noticed there's a thing which is called metrics used in network administration, where they assign a metric number to your line to say this is the priority. So if they assign a certain number there, then all of a sudden your downloads are slower, uploads are really slow, everything works slow. Your mouse might have trouble. It starts doing all these pooling of your resources in order to slow your machine down. And it's also known as throttling. So you've heard that term especially when you've got plans where you have to pay. There's not unlimited, but even unlimited plans get throttled, which is they change the metric number on your line, and then all of a sudden you're not as high priority, so everybody else is getting better than you. Anyway, do yourself some research. It's all available on the net. The internet is a wonderful place for now until they get TPP in. Then all of a sudden, well, they're already doing it. You want proof? Search my story. I invite you to. And then when you're talking to your MPs and people like that, you say, hey, there's active censorship going on here. The same thing happened with the report for the UN report on the committee from, Committee for Disabilities. And with regard to the UN Protocol on Disability Rights and Optional Protocol. Now, under the Optional Protocol, it's my understanding, because Canada signed on there, that I should be given standing in front of the UN. Ms. Rapporteur. It's French for reporter, I think, or something like that. Anyway, it's the same person they had come in and evaluate what was going on with the Native situation, Aboriginal women, missing and murdered Aboriginal women and children. Or children from the reservation school or reserve system, whatever it was. Anyway, just more atrocities of this regime. And again, I thought we didn't support terrorists in Canada. just hours, I guess. Okay. Anyway, that's my personal opinion too, and you can read my, you can see my other stuff. Okay. Anyway, back to the thing at hand, because we're at 10 minutes yet, and I still haven't gotten anywhere, except for the introduction. Okay, so here we are. This is Accessible Customer Service Policy from the Ontario Public Service Accessible Customer. Okay, sorry, I'm reading it off now. So the title is Accessible Customer Service Policy. The Ontario Public Service Accessible Customer Service Policy outlines the Ontario government's responsibilities and legal obligations for providing accessible customer service to persons with disabilities. On this page, they have number 1, our commitment on accessibility. 2 is key principles. 3 is laws and rules. 4 is employee training. 5 is customer service policies. 6 is more information on customer service. They also, the next one beside that says related, and it says OPS, which is the Ontario Public Service Accessible Customer Service Policy. Now then, the first point was our commitment on accessibility. So that reads as follows. Our commitment on accessibility. The Government of Ontario is committed to ensuring that government information and services are accessible for all Ontarians. This includes providing services and programs that people with disabilities can use and benefit from equally, and in a manner that respects their dignity and independence. Key principles. Our policy is based on bullet point 1, respect for the dignity and independence of people with disabilities. Bullet point 2, equal opportunity for people with disabilities to access, use, and benefit from our programs or services, or programs with the same quality and timelessness that others receive. Or timeliness. You see, this is my bifocals. I just got them. Anyway, a little while ago. Anyway. So I'm just gonna reread that one, sorry. Bullet point 2 is equal opportunity for people with disabilities to access, use, and benefit from our services or programs with the same quality and timeliness that others receive. Bullet point 3, service integration in relation to services provided to the broader public, unless alternative ways of providing the service or program are necessary for equal opportunity. Laws and rules. The standards and rules on providing accessible customer service are set out in the bullet point 1, accessibility standards for customer service, which is Ontario Regulation 429/07, which means it's Regulation 429 that was incorporated in 2007. Then the second bullet point and second laws and rules is integrated accessibility standards, which is Ontario Regulation 191-11. Now I'm not sure if the -11 denotes the year. Usually the last 2 digits do denote the year that it was incorporated or put into force or had the last change. So you would have to check that out. But these are 2 links. They link to those acts, and after this, maybe I'll do. We'll start reading those acts too. Again, depending on how long they are, but that's okay. If you're willing to spend the time, I will read it, and by all means, please just listen to the content. And again, I'm trying to get around to this, but I will be doing it without commentary eventually, I hope. Anyway. Back to this. The next one is employee training. Our staff will be trained in how to provide accessible customer service and on the requirements of our accessibility policies. So public service, there's that police officers as well, court people, court reporters, you're talking lawyers. I mean, they're the ones who are studying the law, so they should know that if this is international human rights law, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that it all leads to another thing, right? But there's things I'm starting to realize about that. You need to, again, it's this dichotomy between the English language and what it means. That's for another tape, another topic. Okay, anyway. So customer service policies. This is a summary of the accessible customer service that you can expect to receive. Information and communication. When communicating or providing information or services to a person with a disability, we will do so in a manner that takes the person's disability into account. Accessible formats and communication supports. If a person with a disability needs an accessible format or help to communicate with us, we will work with the person to provide the format or support that will meet their needs at no additional cost to them. If we are not able to meet the person's particular requirements in a reasonable time frame, we will inform them and will work with them to determine an alternate method, or we will provide a summary of the information. Accessible websites and web content. Our internet websites and web content controlled either directly by the Government of Ontario or through a contractual relationship that allows us to modify the product. We will conform to the World Wide Web Consortium Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG 2.0, at level AA, according to the schedule set out in the AODA, which is Accessibility Ontarians with Disabilities Act, Integrated Accessibility Standards. Feedback process. We will inform our customers of the choices available for them to give feedback. Feedback may be provided in person, by telephone TTY, in writing, by email, or by any other communication technology as required. If customers with disabilities would prefer to give their feedback and receive a response to it using an alternate method than one offered, they may request it. Service disruption. If there is a problem with facilities, equipment, or services that people with disabilities rely on, we will provide notice to the public. The way we provide the notice will be determined by the nature of the problem. We will always try to make alternative arrangements to provide service where possible. Assistive devices. People with disabilities may use their own personal assistive devices. Where assistive devices are available in our buildings, our staff have been trained on how to use them, such as disability coordinator. So judges know who they are, and everybody in the courthouse knows who that person is when you say, who's the disability coordinator? They don't go, well, go ask the court manager. You know, who, oh, well, that's me, or this other person I just stuck in front of you because I'm afraid to show up and take responsibility for what I'm supposed to be doing. But isn't that everybody in government? Anyway, yeah. Just my opinion. I don't think any of you guys share that though, eh? You don't think the same way I do. That's crazy. Especially telling the truth about it. Okay, anyway, yeah, I think I came up with a good, actually, how's this working? I got a little thing I can set it on. I don't have to hold it with my hand anymore. So maybe it's not as jittery. Anyway, where am I? Oh, okay, right. Support persons. People with disabilities can access their disability-related support person while using our services. In situations where confidential matters will be discussed, the support person may be asked to sign a confidentiality agreement, or the role of the support person may need to be agreed to in advance of the meeting. Anybody else concerned about that? Admission fees. Where admission fees are charged for government attractions, support persons will not be charged. This policy will be posted on the attractions or ministry's website, included in the information where admission fees are published and at the entrance where fees are collected. View the full OPS, which is Ontario Public Service, accessible customer service policy. There's a link there. Then at the bottom of the page, it says more information on customer service. If you have questions, concerns, or requests, please contact us. And this was last updated August 28, 2015. As of today's date, which is the 29th of March at about 20 to 9 in the morning. Rate the information. Oh, look at this. And they got, David Orazietti, Minister of Government and Consumer Services. Quote, the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services delivers vital programs, services, and products ranging from health cards, driver's license, and birth certificates to consumer protection and public safety to help create a better quality of life for Ontario's families. There's a link to the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services, one for About Ontario Accessibility, News, Privacy, Terms of Use, the copyright for Queen's Printer for Ontario 2012 to 2016. And a bunch of other stuff like contact us, email, phone, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Anyway, topics: arts and culture, business and economy, driving and roads, education and training, um, environment and energy, government, health and wellness, home and community, jobs and employment, law and safety, rural and north, taxes and benefits, travel and recreation. So that's the entire page for that. But now I got a couple things I just wanted to mention, which are just off the top of the head here. And I'll go back and we'll make a new one about the next section, which would be the law. Um, So again, it comes to commitment on accessibility. It says, are committed to ensuring the government information services are accessible for all Ontarians, which is what they're supposed to do, right? This includes providing services and programs that people with disabilities can use and benefit from equally and in a manner that respects their dignity and independence. So again, there's that equally term. So when we think of equality under the law, we think, well, when you look at evidence, you're going to think of it equally between the two parties. You know, that you're going to apply the law equally against us and the other guy. You know, it's used as a distinction. The way that they see equally, though, is like I said, you know, it's a matter of misunderstanding the root term of the word, because in their mind, equally means, well, we're treating you just as bad as the last guy. And we're doing things equal. We didn't treat him any better, so we can't treat you better than him because then you wouldn't be equal. You know, and this is where this dichotomy again and breakdown in the mental I don't know, is it mental capacity, is it and again, I'm not talking about this in the sense of I don't mean it to be derogatory. I'm doing it as an observational thing from the outside looking in, as somebody studying a problem, not the people. This is the behavior that I've experienced over the years dealing with these people on every level. And there's consistent pattern here, which is again why I think this is a place for the UN and international law, because it shows consistency and a pattern of consistency in the neglect, in the ways they obstruct. But again, it comes down to, well, how do we see? So maybe we should make a new legal thesaurus, which explains that, well, when we say the word equal in legal terms, this is what it actually means. We're looking at it from this aspect. So common, and this is what they call common law, is when common law is basically, here's what the law is. Now you go to 10 people on the street, you say, well, what do you understand that law to be? And what they answer, that's what's considered common law, which is the way that a common person or the common man or people that it applies to understands how that law is supposed to be, such as equality in the courts. We think it has to do, well, with a public camera funded by a public funding, controlled by a private corporation which is contracted to uphold certain things, and the only way to test whether or not they're upholding it is to actually have this camera. You know, and again, under the auspices of a fair judicial system where it says, okay, here is, and especially in the case of a public camera, each lawyer should automatically be given all the tapes of that side to review. And they should be the ones to go, well, this is what would be helpful to my case and what I consider to be evidence, and this is, and the other side does the same. And you pull that evidence out and you put together your petition for the court, and you bring it to the court, and what, I mean, if it's a matter of security and stuff like that, that's what in-camera sessions are for. That's what closed-door sessions are for. You know, so there's a mechanism for that. But we get to the mechanism, and all of a sudden they're going, well, and again, it's very consistent that, gee, you know, Ashley Smith, I mean, if they could have just sat there, well, we're going to steamroller over all these rules and go, well, that's not pertinent, and that's not considered evidence, and more importantly, well, that one there, that's just privilege. And they actually put it in their documents, because here's another document that they gave me. It's the one they like to hand out, Guide for Accused Persons in Criminal Trials, Ontario Court of Justice. And in this document, before your trial date, it says, Oh, actually, here, I'm going to read the bullet point off that. It's page 1, before your trial date is the title, bullet point 1, accessibility accommodation for persons with disabilities. If you have any questions about a courthouse's accessibility features, or if you or one of your witness needs accessible court services, contact the accessibility coordinator at the courthouse. You can obtain more information about the courthouse accessibility on the Ministry of Attorney General's website at http://www.attorneygeneral.jus.gov.english/courts/court_addresses. So yeah, go check that out and see if there's anybody called a disability coordinator, because there wasn't before. Disability coordinators, anyway. Go ahead. I mean, check it out. I haven't been there for a little bit. Maybe I'm starting to stir things up, and they're changing things. I mean, that's what the whole thing's about, is making it more efficient. Anyway, this is the one that I wanted to point out, because the next point is called disclosure. Now, listen carefully how this is worded. The Crown is obliged to give anyone charged with an offense, free of charge, information in the Crown's possession or control that is not clearly irrelevant or privileged. Says right in the document. Clearly irrelevant or privileged. So it's irrelevant that the cops assaulted me and did all that stuff, which got me to yell. I was yelling, "Oh, I'm disabled, what are you doing?" And when they set up my PTSD and they're telling me I have no rights and stuff, I was screaming out, this is the democracy you fought for? And I was swearing my head off because they're harming me, and I'm telling them to stop. And I was yelling very loudly and doing anything to raise attention of anybody around me. After the fact, they claim that I did that in order to get arrested. Anyway, again, I'm going to continue. So this could include police notes, witness statements, diagrams, and photographs. This information is called disclosure. If you think anything is missing from the disclosure materials you received from the Crown, mention this to the Crown in court or write to the Crown Attorney's Office, which I've done both. But again, that's why now I understand again, because I over my experience, I started to understand that it's this privilege that's getting in the way of them actually doing what their job is. It's their privilege to do. I'm sorry, I can't do my job. It's my privilege. Anyway, when you put it in terms like that, you start understanding really clearly. I mean, what exactly is this for? Hopefully, I mean, I'm projecting that. Anyway, so here they even say right in there that, well, we will give you information in our possession or control that's not clearly irrelevant or privileged. So they're so intent on this privilege that they're actually putting in documents now. I mean, why would you even put that in the document? I mean, why wouldn't the judge just sit there during his evaluation go, well, okay, this is privilege, so no, I'm not going to allow that. They're actually rubbing our faces in it now. They're sitting there going, hey, wait a minute, but that's not evidence. That's privilege. Because it was the privilege of the officers to card me over 13 years as a nuisance. It was a privilege for some genius in there to go, I got an idea. And obviously the courts were involved because I was a problem for the court, especially the court. Because again, you're talking basic right of being able to write it down. And the only reason why they're not doing it is because, oh, well, we got to go ask Osgood Hall if these people are breaking the law first. And then they get to bide their time while they decide. And meanwhile, oh, well, I'm sorry, we were waiting our time, so now you're 6 month, they've even got it where you're only allowed 6 months to start an action against them for police brutality. So just by nature of them deliberately tying this up, making this an issue when it should not be an issue at all, especially with a fair and impartial court, that's protecting the public good, and public cameras, public location, public funding, public everything except for the corporation of the Waterloo Regional Police Services who oversees it, who happens to act criminally, well, they're automatically, it's never criminal. And let me ask you, how good is policing? I mean, obviously this is the norm for the last little while, which is why you've seen a very different change in policing. They think they're in a war zone. They're putting us all in a war zone. That when I was being carried away, it was Abu Ghraib. It was I was a Jew on the streets of or homo or black person or just somebody they didn't like because they told the truth. And I was hauled off the streets, and I'm sitting there going. The first thought I thought when I actually like I first of all I didn't believe the first time he was almost killing me before I hit him in the head with the card. Well, I keep saying hit, but I didn't hit him. My hands were right there, and I just tapped him because his head was right there, and it's like less than an inch away. So I kind of just went, "Hey, buddy." Anyway, so it's a little misnomer in the way again these words are expressed. But I couldn't believe it then. But when they hit me, and I'm sitting there going, "I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe." They throw pepper spray in my face, and I'm pleading with them, and they're beating me, punching me, kicking me, and just doing everything to put me down. And I was literally blacking out I was having the air expelled from my lungs as I'm pleading with them, and I finally blacked out and let go. And as I'm blacking out, I'm going, I'm dying. They just, they probably just. And I was thinking about that guy in New York. They did it to, selling cigarettes on the sidewalk, and they killed him. He had asthma. I'm sitting there. The last thought that going in my head was, this is the first and last stupidest thing I ever did in my life. Coming up here to ask for help, and I didn't bring Denise with me. But that's how much they got control over my life. I can't go anywhere without Denise or somebody, because I'm a liar, and their word against mine, and they've got these rules to make sure that they're never shown to be the liars that they are. Anyway, so back to this document. Okay. I mean, you guys, you need to get a handle on this. You need to get that this is actually happening. This is not an Orwellian thing. It's kind of Kafkaesque. I mean, me going through this experience, because it's like the trial. If you ever read Franz Kafka's The Trial, it's about this guy who's hauled into this legal system, and he's told he's guilty. You're guilty, and he's going, but I don't know what I did. Anyway, read the book. It's actually pretty good. Very telling, stark, kind of Kurt Vonnegut kind of thing. But anyway, here's those big words again. Hey, maybe some of you people of the Justice Department should read that. Franz Kafka, The Trial. So that way, when I make reference to it in the court, this is a little Kafkaesque. You guys go, oh, I know what that word is. I mean, you're so intelligent, you read all those law books, but comprehension again. We could raise money, though. I'm sure we could raise money and try and get this problem sorted. Oh, look at that. Oh, sorry. I guess I didn't. Anyway, no, enough fooling around. Anyway, then they say, okay, key principles is respect for the dignity and independence of people with disabilities. Now, I write letters, and I can write stuff down. If it takes a lot longer, and I'm a little rambling and stuff, but when I say I can't write it down for court, it's because it's psychological, and they know that. That's why they're going, you're totally helpless. It's exactly what the police did. You're helpless. You can't do anything. We're your oppressor. You have to. If we can't get you to bend right now, we're going to make you do the walk. So they walk you through the courthouse. Like I said, I got to deal with the psychological aspect that these people are supposed to be protecting me, but they're doing the opposite, and they've been doing it for 13 years to the point where I'm a non-entity in my own country. Every one of my rights, because of their ability to punish you for not capitulating to their oppression, and openly, and like I said, I have never gone before a psychiatrist or anybody like that who has diagnosed me as PTSD. The only people who have mentioned PTSD were those people that, when we brought the criminal documents into them, and they bypassed the ability, they just went Dr. Glenchen, chief of nuclear medicine, all that experience, and this extra letter and stuff. Well, that doesn't mean a thing, because it's what we say. So like I said, Dr. Glenchen, where she says clearly this is a brain injury connected to this injury, or to this accident, WSIB with the third party confirmation and all the reports of wrongdoing, and right down to the nurse case manager who deliberately withheld the information from her supervisor when she requested it. Because again, there's these notes that said this nurse case manager in July was told severe head injury, not oriented to person, place, or time, fluctuating vital signs. So they were required to do it when I had the accident at work. Call an ambulance, send me in. When I went in without an ambulance, 9.5 hours in the ER with that type of head injury, the ER should have called the police or somebody because it's a workplace injury. So isn't that concerning that somebody can come into a hospital that hurt, unescorted, workplace injury, and they go, well, that's okay. Nobody calls a cop to go, and why is that not part of the system? Security for all. And like I said, you keep going after me for this accident, not the employer, but what about all those other employers that have been defrauded? Because we're talking about 5 years before my accident. These people were allowed and coached. Because of those accidents, they went in and investigated. The only time a worker safety rep was put in place was after my accident. Then they went in with that 200 new inspectors thing, and even though supposedly they were doing inspections for 5 years before my accident, and never noticed that there's no worker safety rep in place, never did anything to correct that at all. And under their tutelage, as I explained in the other ones, and with the help, they had their own lawyer the whole time through it, as did WSIB and Labor Board and the government of Ontario, which is actually the same thing. It's the Attorney General. That's who represents these people. So again, the Attorney General has a vested interest in making sure that none of this information that I'm telling is true comes out. And again, if we're talking a court of law that's impartial, why are they so afraid of me? Why am I the most dangerous person in Canada? Because I record for no improper purpose whatsoever. Oftentimes people give me permission to record. Again, there is no legal requirement for me to tell somebody that they're being recorded, but even on the phone, I mean, people do act differently when they're recorded. And I'm not going to do something like that without them knowing that, there's something here that may keep a record of how you're treating me. Because the other thing too is the reason why you tell people that is hopefully they're going to be on their best behavior and be careful. And in understanding that, when I go to play my tapes, and the way they act and their behaviors and the consistency between their behaviors, because it doesn't matter which ministry you go to, which service-based situation you go to, which legal aspect you go to, whether it's a lawyer, and they're more arrogant and asinine than anybody else, I have to say, on average. But they're preaching that this continuity, accessible to Ontarians with Disabilities Act, and they can't even get it right because they think it's about getting in buildings. When it comes to like respect for the dignity and independence of people with disabilities, so I can't even get a statement taken. How does that respect my dignity and independence? I mean, the whole reason why you got yourself in this mess is because you overruled my dignity and independence with your lies. And I'm calling you on it. Somebody, anybody, hey, I made a lot of accusations on here too against companies and stuff like that and individuals. Why hasn't anybody got a lawyer going, hey, cease and desist? Do you know why? Because the minute they do, I go, well, hey, just go ahead and file it in court, buddy. And I show up in court and I press play. Or maybe I'll do it on the internet. Because then, like I said, I mean, the court that I'm concerned with is a court of public opinion, because the other court is just for show. So again, all these printing costs, when we start telling people, by the way, there is a casino in Kitchener. It's at 85 Frederick Street. It's where you go play 3-card monte with your money. Try and keep your eye on the ball while you spend your money rolling the dice. There's a couple people in there that might look like they're winning because they're the shill. That's the ones who pay for the privilege. And you get to sit there spinning your wheels while they administer justice instead of actually practicing justice and standing for justice and integrity. Anyway, I'm off topic, and this is 40 minutes. Enough. That's enough for now. Anyway, if please look for this stuff yourself, and then when you don't get what they're asking for, question it. Now, and again, there goes equal opportunity for people with disabilities to access, use, and benefit from our services or programs with the same quality and timeliness that others receive. Well, there's that equality again. So as long as they're being the same idiots with everybody else, I mean, they can be an idiot with you, because that's what the legislation means. It doesn't mean we're going to do this. Service integration in relation to services provided to the broader public, unless alternate ways of providing the service program are necessary for equal opportunity. So they determine whether it's necessary. So I guess this thing about the cameras and what happened to me, that's not necessary either, is it? Oh, here you go. Customer service policies, information and communication. When communicating or providing information or services to a person with a disability, we will do so in a manner that takes the person's disability into account. So I can't write it down because of psychological reasons and others. I mean, the other thing too, I mean, as my own lawyer, I'm supposed to review these videos. And how do I do that without going that I'm reliving the experience every time I do? How do I look objectively at it? It's taken almost a year for me to even get to I like this is all obstructive, and it's meant to be deliberate, and it's reinforcing the same ideals that they did the whole time, whether it's somebody in a ministry that's blocking your ability to have it written down or even heard. Because again, verbal. I mean, here I am a year later, and I'm going into court, and they've got video cameras in the court that are taking pictures of you as you're testifying and everything that you're doing. So everything that goes on from the minute you walk in that courtroom door to the time you leave is on tape, video and audio. And when I'm up there talking to the judge, everything that I'm saying, that it's actually a digital recorder that takes it in real time. Remember that audio array I was talking about? They also have the mic in front of you, but it takes from all sources, and it actually he's not typing anything. If you look at, or she, if you look at where the court reporter is, they don't type anymore. All they do is they sit there and they listen, and they can pause it when they need to, because that's another thing they don't tell you is there are certain rules within the courtroom that if it starts going this way right away, they stop recording or reporting. That's why every once in a while you'll see in the old style courthouses, when you saw the girl going like this with the machine, like in the OJ thing, that was a transcription machine, right? Sort of like an enigma. It has certain vowels that stay by themselves, and then different groupings of letters and phrases and stuff to make it simpler, or even a symbol sometimes, so that when they transcribe it. Anyway, what it is that even in that instance, you'll see them stop typing every once in a while, because that's when they have the unwritten rule of you're not going to record this. In camera sessions, even though they take notes, they're not available as far as I know. And if they don't take notes, they should be made to take notes anyway. And if it's under seal, well, that's different. But if it ever has to come out from under seal, then you get to know exactly what's going on. But there's been at least there's been a few in-camera sessions, and I wonder how many sessions go on, because as my own lawyer, if they ever get together and discuss any part of this case, they're required to have my lawyer present. So here we are talking about, like, I've been flapping my wings and making a bit of ire there and trying to get people's attention, and I've also sent it out to every I've sent this out to every person that needs to know in government. Public safety on federal level, you got Ralph Goodall, public safety minister. You got Carla Qualtrough, which is the new sports and disability minister, who's under Yves Duclos, whatever his last name is, I'm sorry, It's a hyphenated French name. I can't remember, but Yves Duclos, something or other, which is the family minister. The Prime Minister, of course, the Justice Minister, who's also the Attorney General of Canada. Gee, who else did I send it to? Hang on a sec. Maybe I should check it out. Oh, actually, I don't have my. How do you get that up again? Oh, I guess it's here, is it? No, that's YouTube. Anyway, I'm kind of behind on this stuff and getting a little bit tired and confused right now. Anyway, but anyway, it's kind of a rough day. Whenever the weather changes, whether it's really hot and sunny or get low pressure come in, I get the beauty of being affected by that too. Anyway, so I think that's enough for today. Please help me raise awareness. Email, Twitter, tweet them or whatever, and say, "Hey, Justin, when are you going to take on that guy who's challenging you to raise awareness about abuse of disabled?" It's on YouTube. Go check it out. Again, I think you got to put down CJ Bacon, BACON, Disabled Canadian. That usually works to pull up my videos. I don't know if you can actually go on YouTube and just put in CJ Bacon as to look for my channel. Anyway, we'll see you again. I'm sorry I'm getting tired and stuff. I need to lay down and rest. I haven't been sleeping well lately. Every day is up and down. Don't know what's going to happen next. Anyway, I sent it out to everybody who needs to know, news agencies, stuff like that too, and apparently nobody needs to know, and people aren't aware. Sent it out to provincial government as well. My local representatives have been informed. Raj Saini I've been in contact with since he became Member of Parliament, just shortly after when he got organized and finally got his office going, which coincidentally he's got the staff of John Malloy. And they're doing the same tactics. And again, that's what will show in these patterns, is that it doesn't matter where you go to, they all employ exactly the same tactics, to shut you down. Deny, deflect, and obstruct policy. So they're really confused when it comes to actual accessibility, unless it's deny, deflect, and obstruct. Then they get the message real quick and all apply it equally. Again, Ms. Wynn has a lot to explain, because this is why you'll never get, I don't know why we're spending all this money on electronic medical documentation, because as they probably discovered with mine, is that how do you pull off the scams of changing actuarials? So that's where you go in, and we discovered that, well, they'd ask me, what's your symptoms? And I'd say red, green, blue. And when we go look at the report, we're listening on the tape where it says red, green, blue, and they put down orange, yellow, purple. They're diminishing your reporting. They are actually misreporting. Or is it that you've got a group of words and they don't have a group of words that quite matches that, so they got to find the group of words that kind of matches that, but not exactly. It's a system. And actuarials go into everything from the cost of insurance to the cost of doing things to the cost of government. Everything is based on actuarials, which is the study of things over time. Such as, how did everybody lose physiotherapy when a lot of people were getting prescribed it? It was helping a lot of people, but all of a sudden it went off the roster as something that was beneficial for patients because cost outweighed benefit. How do you think they did that? It's because when you go in and they'd say, well, how'd that physiotherapy work for you? You say, oh, it was okay, it worked great. And they'd go, well, not quite. They diminish it. Because by diminishing it, then the cost is the cost. And if they're saying patients are reporting that they're not getting much benefit from it, well, then that's how they determine cost outweighs benefit. And they go, all of a sudden, this thing that's actually benefiting people, it's one of the most biggest services that are provided by healthcare, and yet all of a sudden it's privatized. And meanwhile, while it's privatized, because for 2 years, it was funny, they're sitting there saying, well, you need physiotherapy, you need physiotherapy, you need physiotherapy. We're going, well, we're trying to find it. Oh, you can't find it. Okay, well, Then lo and behold, we go to small town Ontario. When I showed up there and told them of my difficulty, they said, well, why didn't you just go to your local hospital? And we're like, what? Yeah, every patient in Ontario is able to get 10, up to 10, at least back then. Maybe they changed it. It's all about accessibility, isn't it? To services, so they can charge you for it. Anyway, so you can go to any hospital, get up to 10 physiotherapy appointments for nothing. It's included with your OHIP. Has anybody ever been told that since physiotherapy came off the roster and now it's a paid for situation? See, that's the problem with government too. Unless you know what you're talking about, directly look them in the eye and actually ask them point blank the question, they plead ignorance. And a lot of times they do it then anyway too, because then it's like, well, prove that I don't know what you're talking about, or prove that I know what you're talking about. And it becomes a game because it's about services. And the other thing I noticed, the biggest thing about this, where they say, oh yeah, you can take it into any doctor and show there's harm and somebody will do something about it and all that crap. And going to these appointments where I'm clearly in distress, like the one nerve conduction study. I'm clearly in distress. The guy, to the point where he's going, who's your doctor? And he even comments beforehand that I can't do the test when you're in this condition. You have to have your pain ameliorated first. Because if I do this test, it's going to end up being inconclusive. And then when it was all said and done, he ended up doing his test because he needed to get paid. And guess what the results were? Inconclusive. So I'm sitting here going around, I'm going, all this stuff's going on, nobody's helping, but everybody's getting paid. Including that guy. Like I'm sitting there going, I don't know if you saw any of my other tapes, but the part about my heart when we went for that answer, where, and it's happened in many other things too, where if it comes up against this WSIB lie, the wall of that, the doctor has no choice because, like I said, we were there for a heart. I had to wear this heart monitor, and they were giving us the results, and they said something about on an autonomic system, so that's connected to where my head injury was, which is right here on top. And my caregiver, and based on the other evidence we had, obviously asked the right question, which is it connected to his brain injury? It's a valid question. And when she asked that, the doctor, and this isn't a family physician, I was dumped by him because he deferred me to somebody else and then found out I was really hurt. And that everything that could have been detected from being hurt was his responsibility. He could have found out the truth by doing a simple blood test. He could have found out the truth by actually paying attention and actually doing the job instead of politically. At that time, they were working with Mr. Smitherman, even having photo ops in the waiting room, where if I happened to show up, they would shuffle me in the back so I'm not in there in the waiting room going, for my head injury crap. And also that I had to wait so long. And a lot of times he just stick me in the back for like half an hour, 45 minutes until he got around to seeing me. Guy didn't even take my blood pressure. I got all the medical notes from him, and it's amazing. There's very little there. And yet, under the law, anyway. So other doctors, so I got dumped by him, and now I get the joy of going in with other doctors. And it's really funny because even though this doctor said, I'm not your doctor, slams the file, goes, I'm not your doctor, runs away, and you get no answers. We went to OHIP and checked, and it says, if you go, you get a copy of the report from the hospital, it says doctor, and there's a name there. And patient, oh, that's my name. That's my OHIP number or health insurance number. If I go and get the billing from OHIP, well, look at that. How about that? They received a check. And where it says doctor, whose name is there? And where it says patient, well, whose name is there? So you got to understand, they get paid no matter what. And I'm sitting here for 13 years getting run around. Like, you got to remember, why does this not come out right away? Because at first, you're trusting. It's blind faith. These people are here to help. An ER doesn't lie to you. They take care of you. A doctor doesn't lie to you. He takes care of Uh, WSIB and all that. Well, yeah, I heard horror stories and that. Even went through a few of them my own. Matter of fact, to the point where I got my back injured years before that. They tried this crap. I won custody of my kids. I had no choice, and I went to work, just like everybody else does. If there's a way to work, you do it. And that's the problem here because this is a brain injury. If there was any way for me to have gone on and carried on without having to deal with these idiots, I would have gladly done that, like everybody does, because, oh yeah, I just love having this 13 years of abuse where I'm turned down to nothing. Anyway, these are all topics for everybody to discuss. And again, I'm just seeing it's on an hour now, so I'm getting tired. I'm starting to babble and stuff. So please stand up for democracy. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for the people that are being abused, which is everybody except for government. It's the privilege. Please speak out. Uh, Come online. You don't have to agree with me. I don't want everybody to agree with me. And if you got any colorful insight of your own or advice or whatever, feel free. That's what this is for, isn't it? And again, the whole idea is to start the conversation. I think the conversation started a long time ago, but they've just been gagging us. So it's time to come out. And other disabled people or caregivers of disabled, I invite you to come and give your story about how, is there a two-tier citizenship thing going on here? Well, I think it's more than that. But anyway, how do you feel? Do you feel included in society? Do you feel like how about this thing about we got to go and prove ourselves every 5 years? Does an able-bodied person have to prove themselves every 5 years that they're still able-bodied? And yet, every one of our disabled people, brothers and sisters in this country, not only do we have to prove that we're fully disabled, but we have to do it for parking, and then we got to prove that even though we're on low income, and the income tax is told about it from both on federal and provincial level. Well, they just don't streamline Trillium so that everybody in that income bracket is made aware of it. I mean, you don't have to get it, but they should certainly be made aware of it and how you get it. Or even better yet, let's make it standard, and then if they want to turn it down, they turn it down. And if you have any third party providers like Blue Cross, Blue Shield, or anything like that, well, then it's the way the insurance company works, which is they pay first, right? Public is always last. But I mean, and gee, that would save a lot of service charges for paperwork again and again and again. But that's the whole purpose of this. It's been this service. They are servicing us. It's their privilege to service us. And these medical questions need to be answered. So call the MP. Like I said, I made every level of government aware of this. And again, I've made accusations here against Shell. I've made accusations against personal people like Dr. Pope, but against the colleges. Again, that question about who invented the layer of arm's length. Liberals. Liberals are the ones who came up with that extra layer of arm's length of protection for the public. No, it's from the public. But anyway, that again, purpose related to experience. Dichotomy? I'm not. Again, come on, let's talk. Anyway, hopefully it finds you well. Hopefully everybody's safe. And remember, the only one looking out for your safety is you. And blind trust only makes you blind. And they rely on that. They rely on them doing their thinking for you. So, brains for something more than just taking up space in your head. And the English language is a tricky thing. So when they sit there and say generalities, hammer them down to exactly what do you mean by that. Please get Raj Saini is the Liberal member for Kitchener Centre. I forget who the other guys are, but anyway, I got in touch with Andrea Horvath and the leader of the PC. I forget his name, Mr. Brown or something like that. Everybody on every level, Kathleen Wynne, the Attorney General of Ontario, the health ministers, both Health Canada and like for federal and for provincial. Anybody who I think that this might touch on as far as, this may be of concern. So it's not like I'm just babbling out here in internet land. Although it appears that way because they're doing everything with their metrics and everything to just like the UN report for the UN Protocol on Disability Rights that was given right after the Aboriginal one, they are blocking your ability to get free news, like free information. And this is before implementation of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which the main focus of these agreements is to make sure that we will never be able to do this again. This is not news reporting, supposedly, but gee, this is really funny where all the real news is happening because there's people who get paid to, what would you like me to do? How many times would you like me to do it? Where are you sending the check? Why am I lying and hiding again? Oh, because the money, right. Sorry. Who, what, why, when, where. Yeah, I think I covered them, didn't I? Oh, and you get awards for being a good who, what, when, where, and why. Well, you know why they're sending the money, where they're sending the money, to keep you quiet. And anybody who want to know about that, just look what they did to the guys at 60 Minutes when they blew that tobacco story and see how everything's been going since then. It's all corporate. Of course, it always has been. But freedom of the press? No, nowhere. Otherwise, they'd be looking at these stories and shiny little ball distractions about, hey, maybe next time I'll come on and I'll explain why they did the Naguib story in Quebec. Didn't have anything to do with the fact of the findings of the Charbonneau Commission at the time or those poor people in Lac-Mégantic. You know, again, here you got people who just happen to be living their lives, going about their business, happen to go out and try to celebrate life and everything else or just have a beer. You know, they went out to the center of town with their friends and everybody else, and all of a sudden their whole life changed. Why? Well, we'll never get to the answer to that either because of the way that the law operates. I mean, you think they're keeping secrets about me. Anyway, it's an epidemic. And where's law and order or justice if you don't have basic principles met? And again, I'm telling everybody in the industry, every damn lawyer out there, politician, judge, whatever you see yourself as, chief justice, whatever, it is all of our responsibility. We all need to stand for true democracy. And the biggest thing is this: if you are unable or unwilling to do what is necessary to make this a fair and just society, get the hell out. Time to leave. Do the right thing. Do the honorable thing. Time to go. Time to leave. Time to get out of the way and let somebody who understands what integrity, what honesty, what being judicious means, you know, with a level of fairness, you know, because fixing the game is not fair. And just the fact that you have to fix it to this extreme should tell you something. And if you're not getting that message, like I said, it's time to go. It's time to go. There's plenty of us out here who are more than willing to step in your place and do what is required and what is necessary to fix this. You know, keep leading us by the nose, or you can actually get a leader that actually says, hey, there's light and there it is, and I'm bringing you there. Personally, again, I think they're incapable. This system certainly disarms them to make them incapable. Even the very capable are disarmed by the system. And it's designed to do it. It's broken, but it's working exactly the way it's designed to. You know, be aware. You can, you know, people keep talking about the Walking Dead. Yeah, they're everywhere. And they don't have limbs hanging off, and they don't have skin hanging off. They're just like you and me, but their lights are off because, or they're too distracted about going and keeping your nose to that grindstone to keep them in the lifestyle to which they are accustomed, and to keep us in the place where we are accustomed. And matter of fact, what, nobody paying attention? All those gains made are gone. Pensions are gone. Why? Because of governance. It's not just stupid people. I mean, if you give a stupid, I mean, how you could be the smartest person in the world. A lot of them were, and a lot of those people in the states that lost their houses were the ones who followed the dream. They had 2 or 3 jobs. They were paying their bills. They were doing everything they could. But then the banks, like I said, this is the rule. If the bank wakes up one morning and goes, "Well, we need that paper in here," guess what? It doesn't matter what you've been doing. The Queen wakes up one morning and goes, "I need more money." Guess what? Doesn't matter what you've been doing. Why do you think this disconnect in the news between even North America and here? They're even lying about climate change. I mean, there's stories here where they don't even comment about the stuff going on in the States where there was like 30-degree difference, 15 to 30-degree difference between the norms. And all the difficulties that our brothers and sisters down in the southern states and Midwest were dealing with. Like what they're not telling you now about high winds because of climate change. You know, planes actually getting blown out of the sky, and there's heavy downdrafts that I would imagine if it's as heavy air as it may be getting because of all the moisture and all the changes in the climate, maybe MH370 did disintegrate because it hit one of those downdrafts. And it was excessively heavier than what they're designed to go through, so the plane broke apart. And maybe that's the thing that people aren't getting told by the air industry, because, hey, wouldn't that screw up the airline industry if they found out that they can't guarantee that you're safe because of air turbulence anymore? I mean, it would certainly ground a lot of people if all of a sudden you can't fly because, oh, you might be, and you're hearing stories like every once in a while there's these stories coming out on the internet where these flights that are normally, people take business class all the time and taking these flights for years, and all of a sudden out of nowhere the hand of God shakes the plane. It's like turbulence where, some people actually feared for their life and they have to land and stuff. So be careful what they're not telling you. You got to be more aware of what they're not telling you, and not everything's a conspiracy theory, but you know what? You can't trust. This is the problem with their integrity. If it's feigned integrity, then you always doubt it, whether they're telling you the truth. And you people need to get that in the justice system more than anything else, because you're supposed to be the standard. You're supposed to be the ones who set the example. And if you're the one sitting there going, well, yeah, we'll ignore that one. We'll choose this one. Like I said, what? Do I accept where you put me? I'm standing on the street corner. I witness a bank robbery with a bunch of people getting killed and everything else. And an officer comes up and goes, "You were standing right there. You must have seen something." I go, "I'm sorry, officer. I'm disabled. I can't write it down. Neither can you." So I'll just go about my business now. Have a nice day. Is that how we're included in society? Because you know what? We are measured by how we treat the other man, how we treat each other. And Justin, it's how we treat the least of us, right? But you're not aware of this because you don't want to come out and say anything, or except for these moments. And you don't want to come and accept my challenge of raising awareness. I mean, this isn't important to you. This is your first crisis, your first, what do they call that? Look into corruption. Anyway, there's a political way out of this. You've embarrassed yourself, so accept it. And then let's make real change. Okay, because I'm not the only one here. You're talking how lost time injuries, check out how much they've been going up. And you apply this information behind the scenes, and I'm not the only one. You look at what they're doing. This is to get servicing so that they can use our medical system to service us to, it's the cattle mentality again, the mob. We're just cows. We're just cattle. We're the steak. They are the stakeholders. Stakeholders carve up the steak and they eat it. So anyway, please get involved. It's our lives, supposed to be. Anyway, again, democracy is not just an abstract thought, and equality shouldn't be an abstract thought either. Again, I plead to you, we are all the human race. The one who said Caucasian and black and yellow and purple with pink polka dots, again, that's that regime that was using it as a way to describe what they were selling. That commodity again, you know, and if, I mean, even to the point where they're touting their history on television. So again, it reminds us, if we want to end all terrorism and tyranny in this world, well, let's start with the ones that represent us, supposedly. You know, your dynasty is clear. And what? Who's George? Is George going to be the drone king? I mean, you have to understand right now, they got those kids in there and they're going, they're below you. You're above them. They're just the mob, and you rule them. You know, you are privileged. It's your privilege to rule them. You know, and other mindset like this is what they're taught. So is it really Elizabeth's fault? No, it's the mindset. And it's really funny. I believe it was George that was seen teaching his kids how to goose step and Nazi salute in the yard when they had that film come out like last year. And you know, this whole thing about, I don't think the Third Reich went anywhere. They'd spread out all over the world. I mean, that's what corporations are now. If you look at Project Paperclip, you'll find out half went to Russia, half went to, or sorry, the Eastern Bloc, because it wasn't just Russia. But went to the Eastern Bloc, and the other half went to the Western Bloc. And how do you do that? Well, you remember those pictures of seeing Eisenhower and Stalin and Churchill together? Well, that's where they worked that out. And that was all to keep the lid on the fact that they were all actually participating, that it was all just a social experiment, that because that led the way for the military establishment throughout the world. That led the way to, they went and became corporate leaders in America mostly. And what's a corporation? I mean, corporate raiders. They call themselves corporate raiders. That's the new piracy that was invented by the Queen back then, or the royal family, whatever, back then, in order to do guerrilla warfare in times of peace and in times of treaties to hide the fact that they were messing with anybody. Sound familiar? You know, is that, I mean, they've been doing this for centuries and it's been working for them. And every time they want a paradigm shift, they just pull the same crap, you know. And we fall for it every time. Maybe the end of the world is when we finally get it that, hey, you know what? It's these, like I said, when it comes to, well, we've got dominion over this planet, you know, and a majority of us see it as caretaking. Because you don't poison the water you're going to drink. You know, that's just stupid, right? Hello? Anyway, that's enough. I don't want to go through another one. You guys, I mean, it's common sense anyway, isn't it? Well, maybe it's not as common as we think. Time to discuss it. I'm not the only one with an opinion out there, and please, I don't care. Scream at me, yell at me, tell me I'm insane. Do whatever you want, but do something. Anything. Let's talk about this. Maybe I'll start a blog or live, whatever, and have a call-in one. You know, anybody, media specialist, but biggest thing is a lawyer. I need a lawyer. Hello, is there any lawyers out there willing to, you know, even think of that this is an issue that we should maybe talk about and get in the court? Like, am I not worth representing these issues on? Are these not valid questions, or is it just because you're afraid because the framework won't allow you to? Well, speak out. Hey, you want to, maybe I'll do a show where you can come in and we'll black out your face and change your voice so you can come out and tell the truth. Hey, doctors, nurses, you know, go after your colleges and demand that they take the gag order off. This is, hey, public safety minister, hey, health minister, if you guys are so content on what's going on, open the door. Let people talk about it that work in the industry. What, we're going to have a full judicial inquiry? Well, that's going to cost money, and you guys are the ones who decide over your own wrongdoing anyway, and with these rules like this of privilege, I mean, how, that's just a circular thing there anyway. Okay, anyway, lots to talk about. I hope that was helpful to you as far as understanding the accessibility. Please go and see what some of these things mean, and then go and ask these people, like, what do you mean by equality? Equal under the law, Judge? Are you talking about in terms of how you deliberate evidence, or are you talking about in general? Anyway, it's time we do this. Maybe, and again, legal thesaurus. Hey, anybody want to come up with an app? Let's come up with a legal thesaurus which says, okay, in the legal context, this is what the words mean. So we can add about 10 more meanings to the words in the English language already. It's that forked tongue thing. But hey, a lot of actors that working as native people, but except for the natives, they do a little bit more now. Anyway, um, it's all a show, isn't it? Anyway, stay safe, stay good, do the best you can, put your head up, and you know, otherwise, if you're, you know, like I said, if you don't pay attention and you don't deal with this stuff, the yoke is on you. And I'm not just talking about egg on your face. I mean, there's actually a yoke that you put on oxen to make them work. And you keep your head down, keep doing that grindstone, because you don't even notice they keep changing the yoke. Anyway, the yoke's on you. The rest of us will deal with the real world, you know, because we're image, isn't everything. You know, it's amazing. Media is the message. Anyway, hope you stay well. And Justin, I'm still training. I've almost got the ability to raise my arms up above my elbows. It's holding them there that's the trouble. But well, I should stop giving you my training tips, because now you're gonna be able to beat. Well, you beat me anyways. Anyway, anytime, Justin. 3 rounds, anywhere. You know, hey, if Raj Saini isn't doing it, I'll even take on Raj. I mean, if I invited the Justice Minister, the Ralph Goodall, I mean, he could probably take me on. He looks like he's in shape. Anyway, yeah, come on. We can get cameras out there. We can raise awareness. We can make people aware, especially the Prime Minister, that there's a problem with disability being abused in Canada. That's the punchline, Justin. Sorry. Anyway, thank you. Have a good day. Stay safe.